Hello and welcome. I'm Randy Bueller, joined by Paul Rietzel. We got one match of Vintage left. How are things going, Paul?
Great. My deck didn't work out, but that happens sometimes. And, I spent, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I spent a little bit of time preparing. And on Magic Online, there's a lot of paradoxical outcome. There's a lot of Leovold decks, and there's a lot of workshops. So I brewed up a deck to beat those decks, and as happens sometimes on VSL, whiffed completely on what I'd be playing against, and my draws didn't really cooperate too well either. So sometimes the bear eats you, and that was me tonight. But looking forward to seeing one more fun match.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. Sometimes it does happen. It's nice to hear that you've had some success with the deck on Magic Online. I do think Deep Root Champion looks like a Quiron Dryad, right? It looks like a Miracle Grow card. So deck was sweet. People certainly seem to like it. We also got to see it taken hostage. Doesn't seem like a great heads-up Ixalan fight for your side, but now we have the two 2-0s. Eric 2-0, Aaron 2-0, just crushing people, putting on a clinic with this dredge deck. Eric does seem to have the sideboard that showed up knowing he might have to play against dredge. I mean, he's got 7 dedicated anti-dredge cards, but this Hollow One Gurmag Angler sideboard plan that she's got could be an issue.
Right. I mean, the Hollow One Gurmag Angler plan, it's poor against something like, say, 1 Swords of Plowshares or 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor if you draw one of those cards. But if you draw multiple of them, then you're doing like a go wide kind of thing, but with a degree of anger and velocity that 1-for-1 answers are usually capable of dealing with. So definitely an impressive angle to fight in post-sideboard games. And of course, as we know, in game 1, Dredge is just fighting on a totally different axis, playing a type of game that most vintage decks are incapable of interacting with.
Yeah, she's certainly a huge favorite game 1, but most decks can realistically take both sideboarded games. I think the Gurmag Angler Hollowed one, it just looked super impressive tonight. I mean, I'd sort of heard about it in theory, but hadn't really had the chance to watch it in action, and I'm super impressed by it. Like, I'm more impressed by it than I expected to be. Grafdigger's Cage and Containment Priest, I think, are the 2 most common hate cards running around vintage deck nowadays, too, and they're just... it basically blanks them. And like we were watching her sideboard against you, she took out the entire Dread Return package. Mm-hmm. Like she had no Dread Returns left in her deck. She had none of the fatties in her deck. No Elish Nor, no Dragonlord Kolaghan. And it's just, you have to actually wipe out her graveyard to effectively fight against Gurmag Angler. And you have to wipe out her Bazaars to fight against Hollowed One.
Yeah, or just make a 6/6 Deep Root Champion.
Fair.
Yeah. No, it's clearly an exciting angle, and like I said, it's not so easy as it used to be to sideboard against Dredge, where you would take out counter magic and 1-for-1 removal and bring in sweepers and graveyard hate. Now you have to think, okay, well, maybe I do want to have Source of Plowshares in my deck. I need something to kill a Gurmag Angler, whereas normally, you're just dealing with Narcomoebas and blood gas, where plow, it's not necessarily worth a card to plow one of those. So,
and that was your approach, right? You left in the Force of Wills and you left in the plows.
I took out Force of Will, but I did leave in plow, yeah, and okay. I ended up having 2 plows in my draw, but because of the mulligan and just being short on blue and white mana, I couldn't deploy them quickly enough before she overcame me.
All right, our players are ready to go. Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. 3-0 on the line. Eric went 2-1 the first week, so he's in great shape at 5-1 if he can pull this off. Aaron trying to turn a 1-2 into a 4-2.
Yeah, and Aaron has almost a perfect hand. She's missing just the Dredge card. She has Bazaar, multiple pieces of interaction, kind of everything that you want. Eric on the draw had a library, which those hands are very tempting to keep, but knowing the matchup, Eric elects to go for a more interactive.
You can't keep a library draw in this matchup, and he got rewarded. He got the other colorless restricted land. the strip mine is definitely the one you want in this matchup.
Right, and now it's going to put a lot of pressure on this first Bazaar activation from Aaron to find, one of 10 dredge cards to get the game going.
Or a replacement Bazaar.
Or replacement Bazaar, correct.
Replacement Bazaar it is.
That'll do it, yep. And as we see oftentimes in these sorts of game ones against dredge, it's really kind of a one-shot deal, right? You strip the first Bazaar, that oftentimes can really slow them down. But in this case, it's barely going to be a speed bump for Aaron, who's going to be able to get things going. And there's the dredge piece that she needs.
Now, just a thug, but she is definitely short cards with the word dredge on them. I mean, she had to actually draw a card off the top of her library that turn, which is just never where you want to be with the dredge deck. Whiffing on the first Bazaar hurts. Now what? Well, still on just the thug.
Yeah, and against some of Eric's Black Lotus powered draws, he might need, Aaron might need something quicker to combat what he's doing. But Aaron, in this case, under no pressure from Eric.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm so used to having the timing in my head be, I'm playing a combo deck. Like the Paradoxical Outcome deck's going to go off and kill me on turn 3. I have to beat them before that. But she's just going to get an Icarid here. It's going to turn into a trio of 2/2s. No, she's got all 4 bridges. Icarid all by itself is 3 damage and 4 2/2s when it dies at the end of the turn. And Eric can't even beat that. He can't beat an Icarid.
Right. And she, you notice the way her hand, kind of was sculpted there such that every single card had a function. Even the Narcomoeba that would normally be a dead draw, was backup for Force of Will if she needed to fight a counterfight. So, as we see in game 1, dredge decks that have 7-card Bazaar hands are nigh unbeatable, and Eric will quickly go to the sideboard to try to fight on a different axis.
Now, how is he going to sideboard this? He's obviously bringing in all 7 anti-graveyard cards, but he's leaving his plows and his forces in. He's down to 62, 61, taking out his Flusterstorms, sure.
Yep. The three places you could chop are Mental Misstep. She doesn't have that many cards that it hits. Force of Will itself, which is where I elected to go, and you see Eric shaving one there. And Jace the Mind Sculptor. Well, I guess Eric has Dak Faden too, but that does steal Hollow One. All the Planeswalkers are a little on the slow side versus Dredge, so you could see him take out one of the Planeswalkers, but it looks like he's got enough cards out there. He's gonna go to one of the missteps. Yeah, I think I actually like that against her post sideboard config, since Force of Will stops a lot of the scary.
I mean, I normally like misstep in this matchup because you want to fight the Cabal therapy.
Yeah.
But no, I mean her sideboard plan makes Force of Will into the better option.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting stuff. All right, time to go fishing. Oh, that's 6 cards. If that's not a Bazaar on the left edge of her hand, then
yeah, just one hidden card there. So hopefully for her, it's a Bazaar.
Wow. Now Eric has 3 hate cards, but more importantly, he has 2 that wipe out the graveyard.
Right.
That's what he really needs. So presumably he's going to keep Island Brainstorm and trust that his deck will deliver some white mana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that, Eric, again, post sideboard games against Dredge, you have to keep pretty much all of your interactive hands. In that case, that means hands with graveyard hate, and he's gonna. Brainstorm plus his draw steps are gonna dig him pretty deep.
So Aaron used a pair of Serum Powders. 14 cards have now been exiled, but she does have a Bazaar in a 7-card hand that also has a Force of Will.
Yeah,
Force of Will and a Misstep for that matter.
Notably, 0 Golgari Grave Trolls in the all of the exiled cards from Serum Powder. So there's 4 Grave Trolls to allow her to get the kind of peak efficiency of her deck going.
If there's still 4 in her deck, I watched her side one out against you. I was watching Eric's side, not her, so I didn't quite catch exactly how she sideboarded, but she's a Hollow One deck after sideboarding more than she's a Grave Troll deck.
Yeah, it would just surprise me to leave in all the Stinkweed Imps and take out a Golgari Grave Troll, but maybe she expects to cast them occasionally.
Or fears going all in on her graveyard. Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't watch her side this time around. All right. She missteps Eric's brainstorm, which is kind of a big deal given his hand.
Right, right. Eric's going to want to find some sort of white mana or additional card drawing to get his game going, or he's going to be stuck relying on this Grafdigger's Cage.
And discard off Bazaar. Here's Hollow One staring off against a Grafdigger's Cage again. This is crazy. All right, she's going to force the Grafdigger's Cage. Does her graveyard give her? I guess her graveyard has Bloodghast in it. No, that's her ex. That's her.
Graveyard has a thug. One
has
thug.
A thug.
Yep.
But she figures with this dredge, she's going to get some value. I mean, her hand is 2 lands, so.
2 lands, but one of which is Undiscovered Paradise, which lets her cast any. Yep.
And she found Bloodghast, Amalgam.
Yeah.
So Force of Will in the Grafdigger's Cage is actually going to pay off. Wow. And that Hollowed One, I feel like Vintage has this tradition of crazy artifact creatures becoming great due to lands from Arabian Nights.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Bazaar of Baghdad effectively taps for 5 mana.
Right. It's funny. I mean, in Vintage, 0 mana 4/4 is only a little bit above the curve for what you can be doing in Vintage. But when you're forcing people to dilute their decks so significantly with all the graveyard hate, sometimes that's going to be enough. And I'm mostly joking. I mean, a 0 mana 4/4 is clearly a very powerful raid.
Yeah, people play Delvers, so
right.
The Ravenous Trap interaction there is pretty important, though. Erin had spent that Force of Will to defend her graveyard from a Grafdigger's Cage, but Eric had the 0 mana graveyard hate card. The Ravenous Trap is a 1-of in his sideboard, so I don't blame Erin for not playing around it, but it was exactly what Eric needed to try to stay in this game. And her library is actually down to 23 cards at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and Eric is again already looking at really a gigantic draw step coming up here. Is he's going to go down to 12. Erin is already starting to refill her graveyard with the 2 Bazaars and a Golgari Grave Troll. He really wants to find first, a fetch land or a Tundra to rest in peace away the graveyard, and also turn up Swords to Plowshares. If he does that, he becomes a gigantic favorite. Saying go again, not good.
Erin has to decide if she wants main phase Bazaar, hoping for Bloodghast, playing a land. I don't think she played a land this turn, or this is turn 3. Has she played that Undiscovered already once?
I'm not 100%.
Oh, she can't. If she activates the Bazaar, she has to discard it anyway. So she can't get a landfall trigger this main phase. So she passes. That all makes sense. Preordain.
Yeah, good start to anything for Eric, right? That ideally that finds him the white mana so he can plow the Hollow One. So he's gonna have 1 turn before Rest in Peace comes online, where he's gonna have to really just kind of close his. Oh, he's not able to. Find. Yeah.
Preordain fails to find the white mana.
That's tough.
All right, now she can go nuts.
Yeah.
Like she only has to guard against accidentally decking herself. 23 cards in her library. She declines to dredge. She just draws a card.
And that's, potentially a little bit, we're seeing the weakness of this transformational sideboard after she's forced to Serum Powder a few times and no Dread Return combo in the deck anymore. She has to kind of be judicious about these dredges, since the most powerful thing she can really be doing is making big creatures. There's no, wild reanimation coming in Eric's future.
Right. I feel like, she needed to get more value than just a Hollowed One. So she finds a Narc Amoeba. She found a Bloodghast. She has a Cabal Therapy, but no bridges.
Maybe a totally blind therapy, right?
Yeah, but I mean, Swords to Plowshares is the card you're most afraid of, right?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I think naming Plow is pretty reasonable here.
Eric would love to just draw Black Lotus.
Wow. She declines. There's no value in sacking. Like, she would sack a creature. She would just go down on power on the board, so she's not going to go guessing. And Eric's, wow. He gets it discard to hand size? No, he's just at 7.
But if he survives the turn, his next turn is going to have to be Time Walk into Lotus, Plow, Snapcaster, Plow in order to have a chance to win this game.
Yeah, this is 7 power. Put you at 1. Eric can't even crack a fetch land anymore.
Right. It has to be, basically like, it certainly has to be a land doesn't cost. Yep. That's it.
And it's another Force of Will. Unbelievable. Eric Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. The Dredge Queen, showing off the deck that won the Vintage Challenge over the weekend. She's now 3-0'd with it here on Vintage Super League. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess she runs this at Eternal Weekend coming up in about 10 days. Wow. Yeah,
impressive stuff. And beating, pretty wide variety of decks. And we saw, time and time again, that transformational sideboard come through. For
you had a Grafdigger's Cage against her. Eric had a Grafdigger's Cage on the stack, plus resolved a Ravenous Trap. No problem. She just turned Hollow One sideways 4 times.
Yeah. And, one thing that's been true for as long as I played Vintage is that Bazaar of Baghdad is one of the best cards in Vintage. And normally you'd say when people are unprepared for it, but now it seems like perhaps even if people are. So great stuff.
Great stuff. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Come back next week. We will have a new crew of players. We will have the So Many Insane Plays podcast showdown. I know a lot of people wanted to see Steve Menendian and Kevin Cron go at it for bragging rights. That will happen on next week's show. And Steve told me he thinks he has the sweetest deck of the trimester. So I am very curious to see what he's bringing to the table. I want to see what all these guys have done too.
Yeah, I have insights into at least one of these 4 players, but it will definitely be cool. I mean, I think that this season was the Brewers Challenge, and some players have really taken that to heart in terms of kind of putting themselves out there with cool and interesting new strategies. So hopefully people at home enjoyed and give it a whirl. I promise you the Deep Root Champions won't betray you on Magic Online like they did me tonight.
All right. Yeah. Deep Root Champion looks like fun. Saw some hostage takers. That's a fun night of Vintage.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out, Paul. See you around. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you guys next week.